When you try your best but you don't succeed. Guys, sometimes when you see a struggle in a horror movie, you feel for them, you know, genuinely. Maybe they make all the choices that you would have made if you were in that exact situation, or maybe they just do the exact opposite and you think, you know what, that's what you get, go get out of here. Welcome back to Top 5 Scary Videos. I'm your host, Taylor McWatters. Let's break down 5 horror characters who couldn't escape their fate. Let's do it. Kicking off the list at number 5, Peter, Hereditary. Released in 2018, written and directed by Ari Aster, starring Toni Collette, Alex Wolff, Gabriel Byrne, and Millie Shapiro, they crush it. I mean, Ari Aster is killing the game. Hereditary tells the horrific story of a family who's just trying to cope with death. And then all the while, Peter, the son, is being eyed down by Payman, who I'll get into a little later. It's a brilliant horror movie. I saw this in theaters alone, as I do see most things because my friends are chicken. And as you guessed from the title of the video, some people just don't have a great time. So Annie, right off the bat, she starts off eating a chocolate bar at her grandmother's funeral, and her father Steve is like, hey, make sure there's no nuts in that, remember? Whole nuts thing? And she's like, you got it. Yeah, then Charlie eats nuts and bites the bullet, but not how you think. See, she accidentally eats these nuts at a high school party, and then her brother accidentally drives a little too close to a phone pole as she was trying to breathe with her head out the window. Yep, bye-bye. Also, this happens early in the movie too, like it sets the tone pretty quickly. So after Annie tries to burn Charlie's sketchbook, Steve ends up on fire instead of the book. And this is the second time in the film that happens. The first time it was Annie's arm that got it, this time it's Oliver's husband that gets it. Sorry, Steve. Dude bites the bullet fast as well. I'd rather go out burning than a head thing. Maybe not. I don't know. And then after that, it's not long before Annie's possessed. She starts climbing walls, all that terrifying shit. And then once Peter's in the attic and he looks up, he sees Annie flossing her neck off. So yeah, she's gone now too, and then it's just Peter left. And then as if Peter's life isn't horrible enough, this entire movie we see him dealing with all of this, and he's trying to just keep going. He's quiet, he's in pain, he feels his guilt. His mother's making him feel all this guilt. And then to make this story much more insane, he's being stalked by Payman. And this comes full circle after everybody in his family has died. He sees a bunch of butt-naked Payman cultists just chilling out in his house. So Peter does what I would have done at that moment, I mean probably, and just jumps out of the window. That would be it for me. I would just jump and hope I land in some bushes. And this is where Peter finally meets his terrible fate. He floats up into the attic, and then Peter's soul is not there anymore. The worshippers perform the ceremony, and now we have not Peter, but Payman. Sorry, Peter. And before we move on here, guys, if you could go ahead and toss us a like on our video, that would be great. It helps us out a lot here at the studio. If I get enough likes today, they'll let me go home. Please. And number 4, Shane, Child's Play, 2019. Okay, Child's Play, directed by Lars Klevberg. We get a reboot of the classic doll from hell. And I mean, as far as reboots go, it wasn't too bad, to be honest. I kind of enjoyed it. Aubrey Plaza was great. Mark Hamill voiced Chucky too. So if you missed this one, give it a go. He's great. It's pretty decent. Of course, we have our victims. One of my favorite struggles to watch in this entire movie was Shane's demise. He's not a nice guy, so it's nice to watch him bite the bullet. Played by David Lewis, who's probably a nice guy. It's the holiday season, so I figured I'd throw in some snowy, bloody goodness in the mix. So the scene starts off with Shane climbing a ladder to take down some Christmas lights. And he's not in the best mood while he does it either. He's mumbling to himself, doing the classic pissed off neighbor thing where he complains only to himself. So he starts taking all these Christmas lights down at the top of this ladder. And he even says, oh, I guess I should have unplugged the lights. Maybe, or maybe just don't climb a ladder in the middle of the night when nobody can see you. Do it during the day. I mean, I know there's like 3 hours up in Canada of daylight, so the window's tight, I get it. So the ladder starts shaking and he's frightened. He looks down, sees nothing. A mystery is afoot. So instead of getting off the ladder to take a closer look like an adult would do, he just blames it on raccoons and then goes about his business. Raccoons are much worse, I mean, I think. Those guys travel in packs, they have thumbs, they open your garbage with their hands, they crack it like a safe. No. Then the ladder fully falls over and he lands and snaps his leg, and it's disgusting. His kids are rocking the Beats by Dre, so they can't hear a thing. God, those headphones are great. It's super funny, but gruesome. And as if that wasn't bad enough already for this guy, in comes Chucky. Well, I mean, kind of. You don't see him, but you see his little rubber hand turn on the snowblower. So the snowblower starts pulling in these Christmas lights and shredding them up. The lights still remain functional, which is okay. So Chucky hops on Shane's chest while he's holding back the now very close snowblower. He says, it's tickle time, and then does the Chucky thing and stabs him. So while his head gets messed up from the machine, he's getting stabbed. I mean, Shane wasn't a nice guy, and this death was kind of like a, haha, that's what you get for being a dick part. But like part of his hair shot out of the snowblower and landed on a gnome's head. I mean, of all ways to go, this is one of the grossest. Definitely one of the grossest. Love to see it. Number 3, Ellison, Sinister. Bagul was the monster in this movie, and I think he's the scariest monster of all time, personally. He wears the suit, he's got the long black hair. I think he's a former member of the band Slipknot, if I'm not mistaken. So the film follows the life of a horror novelist named Ellison Oswald, played by Ethan Hawke. And he decides, you know what, it's a good idea to move into a house with my family, but then, you know what, I'm just not gonna tell my family about this new forever home that's actually a violent murder scene. Yeah, it's full of forever ghosts, too, which is neat. I guess you forgot to bring that up in the PowerPoint.
We have found a great group rate.
Oh, there's the fine print.
Yeah, he thinks that while they settle in, he can solve the previous murder and then other similar cases in town, where they all ended up dead, except for a missing child in the family. So he's writing a book, solving a murder mystery, he's being a dad and a husband. His hands are pretty full. So he uses this whole experience to spark creativity for a new horror novel. I mean, writer's block sucks, but I wouldn't go this far. Then things take a turn for the worse when Ellison finds a box with Super 8 film reels of those previous murders. This movie was scientifically rated the scariest movie of all time. It was based on your heart rate. And this is when that begins, I'd say. So we have a mix of ghosts that like to creep around the family at night, we have a kid who has night terrors, and we're treated to some really frightening death scenes with those Super 8 reels. The film reels are actually previous deaths that just may solve the missing children case in town. So we have to watch them all. But each time you see these scenes, they almost feel like mini scary movies in themselves, you know what I mean? Like they're all different families. We see Bagul turn these kids into some of the most gruesome murderers I've ever seen in a horror film. Like, watch it, it's very, very scary. There's a part with a lawnmower, and yeah, watch it, it's great. And then in the end, their fate was sealed. The same thing that happened to all these other families in those little home movies happens to them. The daughter gets manipulated by Bagul and kills her family. And at the end, we see her being taken away by Bagul, and it doesn't look like she made it out alive per se. And as for our Super 8 super dad, a little poison goes a long way. Number 2, Paul, Buried. Released in 2010, Ryan Reynolds stars as the lead and, well, the only visible actor in this entire film. It's literally a box film. Coffin film, rather. Waking up alone in a pitch black wooden coffin, American truck driver Paul Conroy has to figure out where he is, why he's there, and how the hell to get out of there. So Ryan Reynolds, like I said, is the only visible actor in the entire movie. It was filmed in only 16 days in Barcelona, and director Rodrigo Cortés nails it. Ryan Reynolds absolutely carries the film as well from start to finish, not only because he has to, but because Ryan Reynolds himself suffers from claustrophobia in real life, and you can see it in certain parts of this movie. You just can tell. I mean, some people are great actors, there's some things you can't act, you can tell. It's like a human fear thing. So the film director sometimes, Rodrigo Cortés, would open the coffin because he thought Ryan was actually panicking. He was, but he's just that committed. Committed to the bit. We love to see it. There's a great sequence where he has to try and turn around so his head and feet are flipped. It's an absolute nightmare. The quiet struggle, and snakes. Of course, there's gotta be snakes. So it opens up with Ryan Reynolds waking up with only a lighter and a BlackBerry. God, I miss BlackBerry. BBM? Let's do it. He then learns that he's being held for ransom for $5 million and then has to rely on bad signal, low phone battery, and lack of information to find a way out alive. So as the minutes go by, we see Paul running out of oxygen. So the audience, you yourself, would feel the same. You start to feel like you can't breathe. And that's what makes Buried so great. It's a hidden gem. Ryan Reynolds reacts like we would. He panics, he gets mad, he starts punching. He immediately tries to break out, and you can see the struggle. You can hear the wood creaking. It's a lot. The film comes to a conclusion when, after hours of negotiating and trying to talk to somebody that can help him, at this point it's almost entirely full of sand. Time is running out. He is literally in an hourglass. And while he's on the phone waiting to be rescued, it's revealed that they found the wrong guy that was buried. This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I would definitely put it first if it wasn't for number 1, David. The Mist. Okay, this one's got a classic holy ending. One that made me laugh out loud in panic. Okay, The Mist, starring Thomas Jane, Marcia Gay Harden, and Captain Ray Holt, aka Andre Braugher, and everybody's favorite Walking Dead character, Laurie Holden. The film follows a group trapped in a grocery store as a wild storm starts to cause chaos. This storm isn't just your regular windy, gusts. The mist is full of terrifying creatures with tentacles and pterodactyl-like features and killer baby spiders. It's really gross. So the survivors begin to turn on each other as they panic for their lives. Now, a few survivors are left. At the end, they make a break for it, they get in a car, and they drive away quickly. Now, the mist shows no sign of holding up at this point. They even come across a giant monster as the car runs out of gas. It's not looking good. So, with only one gun and 4 bullets remaining, he decides that dying by a bullet is much preferred than being consumed by a giant Alaskan crab. So after David shoots the 4 remaining market survivors, including his young son, he gets out of the car shaken and begins to cry as he experiences one of the worst days of his life. He yells and demands the attention of monsters to finish him off, kind of like Quiet Place. And then he hears a rumbling noise approach. This is it. This can finally be the end of his horrible life. Literally seconds later, the military shows up. The fog begins to clear and trucks full of survivors start to pass. Oof! If he just waited a few minutes longer, his son and everybody in the car would have not only survived, but been welcomed with military level support. God, he was so close to getting everybody out, and then he took everybody out. Nice. Probably the darkest fate in horror cinema of all time. I couldn't imagine. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in and letting me rant. I'm Taylor McWatters. You're you. Keep being you. Stay safe, and we'll catch you at the next one. Bye.